The usual suspects are at it again, but I thought they had so-called black fatigue, but apparently I guess they're going to throw this on top of the whole so-called black fatigue. So this is something I came across on Twitter, where you have this young lady right here in the video. I don't have it playing, but it's a screenshot of it, and she's at her graduation, her college graduation, and she's sitting down looking at her camera and her phone while the national anthem is playing. And in the caption she wrote, "I will never stand for this." But of course the usual suspects got a hold of it and decided, we're going to take an opportunity to come at her because she did something that apparently offended us so much. Now remember, the whole not standing for the national anthem, that goes back, of course, to Colin Kaepernick. It's crazy how 10 years later that still has some, apparently it has some remnants still left over. I'm sure the usual suspects are still pissed about that too, even though the man hasn't been in the NFL in about 9 years. But we have this person here whose name is David Santa Carla, who wrote in this caption, "It's been 160 years since Lincoln freed them." Already he's lying, because Lincoln did not free the slaves. It's funny, they think the Emancipation Proclamation is what freed the slaves. I'm not even going to go into a whole historical narrative about what it actually was, but it definitely wasn't Lincoln. But see, they have to give this thing of, oh, y'all were slaves, but it was us that freed you, even though we're the ones that also owned you. But then they'll come back and say that Johnson character was a black man that owned slaves, or it was black people on the motherland that sold us into slavery, or the whole thing. We know their shtick by now. Then they followed up and said, "Can we just admit they are not assimilating?" Well, that's the thing. Two things. One, y'all never wanted us to assimilate to begin with, because we won't assimilate the way you want us to. And two, even if we wanted to assimilate, you would still find a roadblock to put in there. So the thing is, it's like a no-win situation for us. And we're fine with that. We're fine with not wanting to assimilate with you, because we see the ones that you allowed to assimilate with you. Because then we would be walking around here sounding like Candace Owens, Fakem, ABL to an extent, the Hodge twins, the Cartier family, Foreman, Terrence K. Williams, or as I call him, Little Tiny Terry, and so on and so forth. Basically, the assimilation they want us as black people to do is to act like their pet, or basically the house Negro or a tap dancer. That for them is assimilating to their American, I guess you can say, diagram for us. When they're out there yelling black fatigue this and black fatigue that, that's us not assimilating to them. And in their eyes, that's us rebelling against the narrative or whatever kind of layout they feel they have for us. And the more and more we don't do it, the more and more they get so-called tired or fatigued of us. If everyone was around here acting like these bootlegs, they would never, first off, they would never have hijacked black fatigue, because let's be real clear here. They were not the ones that came up with it. And to all you bootlegs out there that are bastardizing it along with them, just like y'all did with woke, y'all ought to be ashamed of yourselves. But I know you're not, because as long as you're getting clicks, views, and engagement and money, there is no shame to be had, I guess. So this person wrote this right here, and of course it set off a firestorm, and then everyone else had to chime in. We have this individual right here says, "We don't want them to assimilate anymore." Well, that's the thing. You never wanted us to assimilate to begin with. And let's be real, if you really wanted us to assimilate, then why in the world did you have Jim Crow? Why was everything separated then? I always thought that separate but equal doctrine was one of the most hypocritical, backwards doctrines ever created. Going on, he says, "That time has long passed. We want them to be sent back." Sent back where? Where are we going to go? Where are we going to go? We can't be sent back anywhere, because for the most part, if our ancestors were slaves, we're here. Where are you going to send us back to? Then he says, "Sent back to their own countries where they can sell and eat one another away from the rest of us. They hate our country," which is fine. They still think that the country belongs to just them. He says they can go live without all the technology, entertainment, and fast food they enjoy. Bye-bye. Now, what's funny is about when he says entertainment, let's take us away. You're going to take away all the entertainment. It's amazing how much they think that how well they think they can do without us. And the crazy part about it is they think the same thing about us. They be thinking, oh, they can never thrive without us. I beg to differ. I highly beg to differ. But let's go on to the next statement. This person right here says Lincoln should have shipped them back to where they came from. Some of these I'm not even just going to go over because it's like I'm just going to go through the comments because they pretty much all are saying the same exact thing. This person said this isn't going to stop until they start getting taught that they are actually Americans, not Africans living in America. Well, for those of us who are FBA, we already know that. Thanks for preaching to the choir. We already know that we're not Africans living in America. Africans living in America would be like anyone who comes off of the coast, not the coast, off of the continent of Africa. Many of us were born here, you know, our lineage goes back to here, not to Africa. And if it does, it's many generations be way so far back. But as far as us here, we are American citizens. So thank you for preaching to the choir, Angelo Bruno. And I will be asking this question about you, where you came from with that name, if that is indeed your name. Now, this one right here has a host of comments. You have one person that says black people have been free in the U.S. for longer than they were slaves. Someone says wow. See, again, another thing. Okay, so apparently 400 years of slavery is more than 160 plus. Someone doesn't know how to do math, but okay. These are the so-called high IQ. This other person says they need to go back to Africa. This is America. Let's send them where they want to be. Another person said, I actually had an economics professor at Columbia that proved they were better off under slavery, even compared to their natural state in Africa. Another person said, this is so disrespectful. It's this national anthem and its evolution that allows her to have this phone and not be subjected to brutal enslavement. America is not perfect, but man, America has been at the forefront of human choice. Y'all, let's continue. This one says, and to put it on camera like that, I'd never hire her. So you wouldn't hire somebody because they didn't stand for the national anthem. Just imagine if that was the case and she was going for a job and they didn't hire her. She would have a huge the company that did that would have a lawsuit against them, and she most likely would win. So be careful with that. And this other person right here says, I can smell her hair through the internet. You know what? I bet you it smelled like juices and berries. Moving on. This comment says Lincoln and Sherman were concerned about this too. Another one says one word, Liberia. I guess that's what they're saying that they would send her to. Someone else says Lincoln wanted to send them back until he was removed so that it couldn't happen. Someone else says bringing Africans over to North America is the biggest mistake whites ever made. They're like bacteria. It's funny they're saying that, but you were so proud that Trump imported 59 white quote unquote South Africans here. But we know what Africans you're talking about. And this last comment says never have, never will. This first comment at the top says it's time for the African, and they made sure to put it in all caps, American community. And I find it very funny that they put African in all caps and then they lowercase American, but I thought they was America first. So you would think that they would have at least both words in all caps, or how they feel maybe put Africa in lowercase caps. But I suppose they said to fix themselves, or there is a great big place called Africa just east of here. Someone else says exactly Liberia. Another one says quote unquote American. This next one says, can we admit that they simply do not have the intellectual capacity? Again, all of this because this young lady just decided that she wasn't going to stand for the anthem. So they literally attacked this woman's intellect. They attacked her hair. They said she needs to be sent to Liberia. They said black people need to have this conversation about why black people are being so insubordinate. Why aren't we doing what we're supposed to do, and how white people, we can no longer assimilate with them, even though we never really truly assimilated, and so on and so forth. But let's continue. Someone else says we need to do something drastic. Now I want you to pay attention to that drastic. When you hear that word drastic, that sounds very threatening. I just want y'all to say that, but understand this. A lot of the people that saying stuff like this, they never go offline with it. Y'all saw what happened to that PC man at that bar or that club in Holly Springs, Mississippi, when he decided to build up the courage to take his rhetoric offline. And this James person says, I have less of a problem with her not standing than the flouting of it by admiring herself on her phone. So we got a lengthy comment right here from a person who brought their blue check. It says, one big problem is that Lincoln did not like black people. He did not want them up north. He knew, and they put new as in something new instead of the context they're supposed to use it in. I told you, when they be doing, I become the grammar police when I do these type of videos, that issuing the Emancipation Proclamation without making a plan for millions of blacks that were going to be jobless and homeless and simultaneously burning most of the South would cause irreparable damage and festering schism between blacks and whites. He knew this would happen. So you managed to find out how to spell new at the end, but it's funny because they use a lot of big SAT words after their misspelling of the new that they put up there, but they could spell everything else. Then this person replied to them saying, because he knew they were ignorant savages that were only good for work. Well, tell us how you really feel. Say it with your chest. This person says, now we know the faces, so no American company should ever hire these ingrates if they do boycott. See, ridiculous. You actually think a company is going to not hire someone because they did not stand for the national anthem? In that case, it would be a good chunk of American citizens out of a job. Because let's be real here, she is not the first, nor will she be the only person to have ever sat for that anthem. And I guess you can throw this on it for it to be caught on video, or whether they decide to video it of themselves. Like, again, that's why I titled the video the way that I did. They were so easily triggered, and I love it. So all in all, congratulations to this young lady. I don't know who she is. I hope that her future is as bright as the cap and gown that she's wearing in this image. And shout out to you for unknowingly triggering these individuals. I'm not sure if she's aware that she did. I'm willing to bet she probably posted this up on her TikTok, and they went on there and they found it and they decided to post it on the echo chamber that is now known as X or Twitter. And again, this just shows you that she didn't have to do nothing but capture this 14-second video of her looking into her phone with her cap and gown on, getting ready to graduate and playing in her locks, and putting a caption that says, I will never stand for this. And it triggered all those emotions that I just read to you. And trust and believe, it's so many more. If I was to go through all of them in this video, we would have probably been up here for over an hour, maybe nearly 2 hours. That's how many how many were so quote unquote affected by what she did. She did not do anything harmful to anybody or to herself or anything in a criminal way that would garner them to be so butthurt the way that they are. But just because she decided to sit down and do that and post that video up, she probably knew it was going to trigger some people. And maybe this was her grand scheme to get them triggered, because she knew exactly who was going to be very riled up about it. We know. And it's funny because, again, I'm sure there are videos out there of white people who don't stand for the anthem, but they don't go at them like they go black people, because they make it seem like we always have to fall in line. In this stance right here, she was being insubordinate. She wasn't falling in line. She was being disobedient. And that's why when I look at some of these responses, the way that they do, or what they say, especially with this, I bet you if they could go back into chattel slavery and become massa like their clan ancestors, they would do it in a heartbeat. Put a whip in their hand and watch how fast they whip that thing around like they're Catwoman. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.